Miata. Supercharger. All my friends have one. I gotta get a Miata.
Let's say you have $5,000 to $8,000 burning a hole in your pocket because you sold one of your cars. What would you get for that budget? In this video, we're going to talk about what I got, why I got it, and what my plans are. I've only in the last 30 or so cars that I bought over the last 20 years, bought the same model 3 times. Number one was when I bought a 2010 Mazda 3 hatchback, standard 2.5 liter. A couple of years later, I liked that chassis so much that I ended up getting a Mazda Speed 3 of the same generation, a 2010. The second time I did this was when I bought a 2012 Mustang GT 5.0. I liked it enough to go buy another Mustang later on. I bought a 2016 automatic, which that transmission sucked, so I ended up actually getting rid of that car. This is before they did that 10-speed. And then the third time I did this was my 2 Audi S4s. My Audi B6 S4 has to go. And why? Because I want something nimble, I want something a little bit more trackable, and I also want something that's going to cost a lot less to maintain. So on my pursuit of getting a more nimble and more track-oriented car, what cars did I consider? So we're going to dive right into that. First, I'm going to show you exactly what I bought. So let's go take a look at it. 3 years after selling my previous NC Miata, I am back in an NC Miata. This is a 2006 Grand Touring model. It has 186,000 miles on it, which we'll talk about shortly. Right off the bat, it checked off a lot of the boxes that I was looking for in a car. Number one, LSD. This car has LSD. Number two, 6-speed manual. I didn't want a 5-speed, I wanted a 6-speed. Number three, the color combo. This green with this tan interior, I absolutely love. I've always wanted a roadster with that classic British kind of racing green kind of look, but this is the closest thing that I'll get right from the factory. Plus, lots of cool options to be able to modify this and make it look cool. Number four, I wanted something that was fairly stock. This is a fully stock, except a couple minor things, NC Miata that I was able to find. And number five was budget, and this car fell towards the bottom of my budget, but with that came some minor things that I do want to focus on and get fixed before we start building this into what I envision it to be in the future. So let's do a quick walk around. I'm going to show you some of the things that need some work. Doing a quick visual inspection of this car, there's a few things that need to be paid attention to, but overall, for the amount of miles it has, it's actually in surprisingly good shape. But we'll do a quick walk around. Number one, got this fog light that needs to be replaced, gets delivered today, ordered that, got a used one. Number two, it's got a few scuffs and scrapes, mostly on the hood. You'll see a couple scratches, some major ones, a couple right there. But overall, no hail damage, really good paint, just needs a big cleaning. And the only other thing that I've really noticed is a door ding right there. You can see that one. The paint is in really good shape. It's such a cool color. Really shimmery kind of finish to it. And the green goes really well with the brown interior. I hate the brown soft top, but that's something that we will address later on. But all the lights are functional, everything electronic works. The one thing I did notice is that the tires here are 215, 35, 17, which is what I used on my last Miata, so I'm going to keep those two. But the fronts, for some reason, are 225, 45, 17. So I'm going to be replacing these, but I'm going to be replacing the wheels anyway. But everything else lines up real well. There's no issues with the headlights or anything like that. Going to the windshield, there's one big kind of issue right there. Not that big of a deal because it's not really in the way. And the soft top does show a little bit of wear just around the frame area, but really nothing to be alarmed about. So let's go into the interior. So the interior is in really, really good shape. The only big thing that I notice is the wear on the seats, but I've seen worse on cars with less miles and newer year. But the doors look great, no scratches, not even a single scratch on any of the materials. Steering wheel is going to get replaced at some point. Dashboard fully stock, no modifications whatsoever, no scratches, and just looks really, really good. All the latches work, all the electronics work. The only thing that this car did have is this weird, horrible shifter that they had, shift knob that they had installed. So I replaced it with a kind of a basic black shift knob. So whoever had this took really good care of it over the last, 15, 20 years. It's a 3-owner car, but this car has 186,000 miles on it. So what's wrong with it? Let's check out the engine bay and I'll talk about that. And here we have what is a pretty clean engine bay for a car with 186,000 miles on it. The things that really needed attention on this car are the power steering. Right away, when I was test driving it, I could hear the power steering whining. And when I looked down here, there was fluid everywhere. And for reference, this is what the power steering pump sounds like when the car is on. It's super loud. When I turn the wheel, it gets worse. Watch. So I do have a replacement pump on the way. So that will be replaced, fairly easy work. This tank is definitely going to go. It's actually completely cracked at the top. This lid is barely on, so I haven't been driving the car much. The owner of the car did do the exidy clutch, OEM style. And I did notice that when I'm not pressing the clutch at all, there's a little bit of squeaking. But then the second I touch the clutch pedal, the squeaking goes away. So that's something I'm going to have to look into. You can hear my clutch issue. So like right now I'm not pressing the clutch at all. You can hear that squeaking. I hope you can pick it up. If I press the clutch, it goes away. Comes back when I let go. But overall, I think for what I paid for this car, I think I got a good deal. I probably could have dished out, 2 to 3 to 4K more and gotten a car that was turnkey, lower mileage. But that's part of the fun with owning a Miata, is finding one cheap and building it out to look like the one you want. So let's talk very quickly about some of the other cars I considered. At the end of the day, I wanted to shift my focus back over to what I really wanted, which was a nimble race car. With my limited budget, my selection was pretty small within that frame of cars as well. And really the top 3 or 4 cars that I started looking at quite a bit were GTIs, Mark 6 GTIs and up, E85 Z4s, which I'll talk about shortly because that was actually one of the cars I almost pulled the trigger on. And then I also considered like an FRS. So why did I not get the GTI? That ultimately came down to me narrowing down the fact that I actually really wanted a roadster. My daughter had a little bit of influence in that because when we had my NC Miata before, she loved driving in it. Now she's a little bit older now, and she did mention that, hey, it'd be cool with the weather that we get here in Texas to be able to put the top down and go places. So I kind of ended up writing the GTI off after I test drove a couple Mark 6s, which I loved. So the other cars that I was considering was an FRS, and that went out the door also when I decided that I wanted a roadster. So the 2 roadsters that I was considering were a Z4 E85 generation, and then also the Miata. And with the Miatas, I was only considering NC Miatas and NDs. I don't really care for NAs or NBs. So I started my hunt for a Z4 because ultimately that's what I wanted. I think they look awesome. I think there's some cool things you can do. And the 3-liter inline V6 is a great motor. However, the more research I did, the more I learned that all these small things keep going wrong. There's a lack of aftermarket support for them, generally speaking. There wasn't like a really good answer on what tracks would allow that car. There wasn't really good roll cage options. So I was having a really hard time finding a Z4 manual in the Dallas area. So I ended up driving to Houston to go test drive one. There was also one I was looking at in Arkansas that my good friend Austin was able to go look at for me. And I really, really liked driving the Z4 that I test drove in Houston. Like I mentioned, the uncertainty of which tracks would allow it on there and lack of aftermarket support, and also all the small little things going wrong. The engines were good, but all these other things were going wrong with those things. So I decided it just wasn't something that I wanted to sign up for. I started looking at NC Miatas and I found a lot, obviously. Within the Miata world, I was at a crossroads. Do I get something at the top of my budget that's turnkey, ready to go? I wouldn't have any money for modding anytime soon, but at least I'll have a car that just works right off the bat. Or do I lower my budget and buy something that I know is going to be a little bit of work, that's in good shape, and then I can just build it up slowly? And I opted for the second. Was that the best decision? I'm not 100% sure. So there you have it. What did I get for $5,000? Hope that gives you an idea of kind of what you can get. But if you have any questions about how, the purchase went, what I looked for, where I searched, feel free to message me. You can leave a comment down below as well. But I've already done a bunch of things to this Miata, and that's what my next video will be coming. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye.